So I think I'm finally brave enough to talk about my motherland, the Soviet Union. The thing is, I've just been so greatly frustrated with seeing a lot of very stupid takes on the Soviet Union forever. Like, ever since I was a child, the Western propaganda has been, displayed to me, and it sucks. I'm not going to give you, if you've come here to argue with me, I'm not going to give you the tons and tons of data to prove you wrong because I'm just not here to argue with anyone about anything, especially emotional concerns, because a lot of people have very strong emotions about the Soviet Union. And I do too. You know why? Because I was born in the Soviet Union. Granted, I didn't get to live much in the Soviet Union because it was destroyed untimely, but I was able to read some of the literature that was published in the Soviet Union, and I was raised by the people who were born and raised in Soviet Union. I got to talk to a ton of people who lived under the Soviet Union, who are all my relatives and my friends. And those people have overwhelmingly told me how great the Soviet Union was, and they did admit some of the mistakes that were made by them, because some of the people who I am related to were engineers and architects of some of the cities we live in. And they overwhelmingly had a good time during the Soviet Union, even in the 60s and the 70s, even up to the 80s. People's basic necessities were met, and people overall shared in the ideology of building prosperity for all. Obviously, there were some people who didn't accept that and didn't want to participate in that, and people who seeked opportunities for themselves only. But I don't think I've personally met any of those kind of people. All those people who I met who lived in the Soviet Union, who were my grandparents, my parents, their friends and family, they all worked very hard to achieve the better good for the majority. And they also sought out things for themselves, just like any person would. And they would often talk about the things that they were lacking materially, yet they would always praise healthcare, education, and all of the things that they got to have because we had a people state. For the majority of the Soviet Union's history, it was the people state. Now, if you're interested in actually looking at the data, I recommend starting with something simple like Michael Parenti's this book, which is everybody's favorite, myself included. And another one of the books that I haven't yet finished, but I get a sense that it's going to be pretty good, is this one. And if you speak Russian, I recommend this person on YouTube who talks about the history of the USSR and the modern history as well. But moreover, there are plenty of sources online which, if you look a little bit farther than the CIA sponsored propaganda, you're going to see a lot of the people who wrote their, witness accounts of what life was like during the Soviet Union. Even if you read like authors like Audre Lorde, and there are multiple sources that you can take a look at. There are archives as well that have been published, the Soviet archives, and we generally have access to them. I read excerpts. I didn't read like an entire set of papers. But if you speak Russian, it should be pretty easy for you to find. But if you come here to argue about how life was bad under Soviet Union, shut up. I don't want to listen to you. But if you ask a question in good faith, you and I, we can look at the sources together and try to discover what the truth was. And overall, I recommend anyone to take care before spewing things online. And I am not going to tolerate this anymore because I'm just so sick and tired of seeing lies being spread about my ancestors who died so that the people's state could flourish. So if you're here to support collective learning, you're welcome. If you're here to spew nonsense, bye.